What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to Not Your Average Meta, an MTG Commander channel dedicated to bringing you decks and commanders you wouldn't normally find in your average meta. This week's video is brought to you by our new channel sponsor, International MTG. If you're looking for competitive pricing on your favorite MTG cards, old and new, be sure to check out the International MTG store and TCG Player, link in the description of this video. This is a trigger warning to all those players out there who hate mill decks, because this week on Not Your Average Meta, we have a matchup featuring 3 different mill decks and a self-mill deck. First up this week, we have the werewolf guy Martin gracing us with his presence again, playing Umbris Fear Manifest. This deck looks to mill his opponents into exile until he can swing into his opponents with lethal commander damage. Next we have Cast back again playing his mono blue commander Bruvac the Grandiloquent. This deck looks to also mill his opponents out, but twice as fast as a normal mill deck. Then we have Justin back doing what he does best, playing Mirko Vosk the Minddrinker. This is a classic Justin mill deck that is going to do exactly what you think it's going to do, mill his opponents out for a win. Finally, we have Fogrel back playing Henzie Toolbox Torre. This deck looks to use its commander's blitz discount ability in order to cheat in big creatures with big ETB and death triggers. Now that we have our fighters, let's step into the Thunderdome and see which deck will come out on top. Turn 1, Fog plays Riveteer's Outlook, then cracks it getting a life and goes to get a tapped mountain. Martin draws and plays a tapped Choke Estuary for turn. Kess draws and plays a Scalding Tarn before passing. Justin draws and plays a Field of Ruin before also passing. Fog draws for turn and then plays a Forest before tapping out to cast a Rampant Growth, going to get a tapped Swamp. Martin draws and plays a Swamp before paying 2 for Dimir Signet. On his instep, Kess cracks his fetch land, losing a life, and goes to get an island, putting it into play. Kess draws for turn and plays a Castle Vantress before paying 2 to cast a Mesmeric Orb. Justin draws for turn and plays a Swamp before tapping out to cast a Demonic Tutor, going to get a card out of his library. On his upkeep, Fog untaps, mills off the orb, and then draws for turn. Fog then plays a Command Tower before paying 1 for a Soul Ring and an additional 3 to cast his commander, Henzie. On his upkeep, Martin untaps, mills off the orb, and then draws for turn. Martin then plays an Nephalia Drownyard and passes. On his upkeep, Kess untaps, mills off the orb, and then draws for turn. Kess then plays a Prismatic Vista for turn before paying the 1 life, cracking it, and goes to get another island. He then pays 3 to cast Windfall. This then has each player discarding their hands and drawing a fresh 7 cards. On his upkeep, Justin untaps, mills off the orb, and draws for turn. Justin then plays an island for turn before tapping out to cast a Treasure Mage. He then goes to get an artifact of CMC 6 or greater from his library. On his upkeep, Fog untaps, mills off the orb, and then draws for turn. Fog then plays an untapped Smoldering Marsh before paying 3 for Protection Racket, and then paying another 2 for a Keen Duelist. Fog then goes to combat, swings Commander Martin, who in response to attack, casts Reality Shift targeting Henzie. Fog then puts his commander back in the command zone and manifests the top card of his library. On his upkeep, Martin untaps, mills off the orb, and then draws for turn. Martin then plays a Fabled Passage as his land for turn, before paying 1 for Lantern of the Lost and another 1 for a Planar Void, ruining everyone's day. On his upkeep, Kess untaps and mills off the orb and draws for turn. Kess then plays another island for turn before paying 2 for a Fellwar Stone, paying another 1 for a Mystic Remora, and then paying 2 more for a Mindcrank. On his upkeep, Justin untaps and mills off the orb and then draws for turn. Justin exiles Kess Graveyard with a Bajuka Bog before casting a Frantic Search. He then draws 2 cards, discards 2 cards, and untaps his 3 lands, milling 3 more cards. On his upkeep, Fog untaps and mills off the orb. He then triggers his Protection Racket targeting Martin, who doesn't pay the 4 life, Kess, who decides to pay the 2 life, and Justin, who doesn't pay the 7 life. Fog then triggers his Duelist targeting Martin. Fog and Martin then reveal the top card of their libraries, which has Martin losing 0 life, while Fog loses 3 life and mills 3 more cards. Fog then draws for turn and plays a tapped Savage Lands, and then pays 5 to recast his commander a second time. On his instep, Martin sacks his Lantern to exile each graveyard from the game. On his upkeep, Martin untaps, mills off the orb, and then draws for turn. Martin then plays a tapped Dismal Backwater, gaining a life. He then cracks his passage to go get an island, putting it into play, and then taps out to cast his commander, Umbris, targeting Justin with the ETB, making him mill till he hits the land. On his upkeep, Kess untaps, mills off the orb, and then draws for turn. Kess then lets his Remora die before playing a Cephaloid Coliseum for turn. He then casts a Ponder to look at the top 3 cards of his library and rearrange them before drawing. Kess then pays 3 for a Manic Scribe, having each opponent mill 3 cards when he enters before casting his commander Bruvac. On his upkeep, Justin untaps, mills off the orb, and then draws return. Justin then plays a Drowned Catacombs return before tapping out and casting Jace, Memory Adept. He then zeroes Jace, targeting Kess, having him mill the top 10 cards of his library. On his upkeep, Fog untaps and mills off the orb. He then triggers his Protection Racket, targeting Martin, who pays the 0 life, Kess, who pays the 1 life, and Justin, who doesn't pay the 2 life. Fog then targets Kess with the Duelist trigger, and they both reveal the top card of the library, which has Kess losing 2 life, while Fog loses 2 life and mills 4 cards. Fog then draws return and plays another mountain. He then pays 4 for a Panharmonicon, and another 2 for Squandered Resources. Fog then pays 3 and sacks a forest to his resources, creating another forest, along with sacking his command tower to create an additional forest. Fog then blitzes into Palaka Worm, gaining 14 life when he enters. This video is also filmed before the Henzie errata, so the Palaka Worm did not have haste from the blitz trigger. On his instep, the worm dies and Fog draws a card. On his upkeep, Martin untaps, mills off the orb, and draws return. Martin then plays another swamp and then pays 3 to cast a Whisper Silk Cloak. He then pays to equip his cloak to his commander and goes to combat, swinging his commander at Fog for what almost seems like infinite commander damage. On his upkeep, Kess untaps, mills off the orb, and draws return. Kess then pays 1 to catch Visage of Beyond, drawing a card. He then pays 2 for a Merchant Scroll, going to get a Cyclonic Rift from his library, and then puts it to hand. On his upkeep, Justin untaps, mills off the orb, and then draws return. Justin then plays a Glacial Chasm for turn before zeroing Jace, targeting Martin, having him mill the top 20 cards of his library. On his upkeep, Martin untaps, mills off the orb, and then draws return. He then goes to combat, swinging his commander at Kess, who in response casts Alchemist Retrieval to bounce Martin's cloak back to his hand. Kess then chump blocks with his Scribe, and after combat, Martin pays 3 to cast Narset Parter of Veils, and then pays 2 more to cast Rite of Consumption, sacrificing his commander. This then takes Kess out of the game, and Martin figures to gain his enormous amount of life before down-ticking Narset, passing turn. Justin pays a 2 life to his Glacial Chasm on his upkeep and draws return. He then plays a swamp, zeroes his Jace, and passes turn. Martin draws return and then recasts his commander, targeting Justin, who mills the top card of his library, revealing a land. On his instep, Justin flashes in Namana Skydancer to mill Martin for 2 cards. Justin draws return and pays the 4 life to his Glacial Chasm. He then zeroes Jace, again targeting Martin, and passes his turn. On his draw step, Martin isn't able to successfully draw a card and loses the game. Okay, so we've got the Maestro of Mill himself, Justin, winning the Who Can Mill Their Opponents the Fastest game. How does it feel to win?
Feels good to pick up another win. Mill's starting to become a valuable archetype in Commander. You got more stronger cards that support the mill now, so feels good.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you can see more games and decks you wouldn't normally see in your average meta.